Drage gledateljice i dragi gledatelji, dobra vam večer i dobrodošli na Svjetski ekonomski forum u Davosu. Dobrodošli u emisiju N1 u Davosu. Ovo je slika dana.
Control in a much more finer grained way.
En la que no se perseguía.
Dan je, kao što smo imali prilike vidjeti, obilježila prije svega Angela Merkel. Nije ona naravno bila jedina žena koja je danas itekako ostavila dobar utisak ovdje u Davosu, ali je definitivno privukla najviše pažnje. Angela Merkel ovdje danas dolazi po 12. put i priznala je to organizatoru i pokretaču ovog svjetskog ekonomskog foruma, koji se doduše održava u Švicarskoj, ali Klaus Schwab je također Njemac. Čestitala mu je na 50. rođendanu ovog foruma i po 12. put se založila vrlo jasno i vrlo javno za vrijednosti iza kojih stoji kroz cijeli svoj kancelarski mandat, odnosno kroz nekoliko njih. Angela Merkel založila se za multilateralizam, založila se za svijet onakav kakav je bio, barem kakav je međunarodni poredak u njemu uspostavljen nakon kraja Drugog svjetskog rata, tražila dijalog, priznala čak i svoje greške, rekla da je 2015. godine pogriješila kod načina na koji se nosila sa izbjegličkom krizom, ali ne zbog odluke da pozove sve izbjeglice u Njemačku i u Europu, nego zbog činjenice da se Europa i Njemačka i ostatak svijeta nisu dovoljno bavili uzrocima izbjegličke krize. Slijedom toga upozorila je i na mogućnost da Libija postane nova Sirija. No iznad svega toga i više od bilo čega drugog, u svom govoru posvetila se klimatskim promjenama i jasno poslala poruku da je spremna, i to ne samo ove godine, biti na čelu kolone koja zaista vjeruje u klimatske promjene i vjeruje da su one itekako veliki izazov čovječanstvu danas.
Die Frage der Erreichung der Ziele des Pariser Abkommens könnte eine Frage des Überlebens für den ganzen Kontinent sein. Und deshalb ist Handlungsdruck da, weil wir wissen, dass wir die Ziele von Paris, vor allen Dingen das Ziel, die Erderwärmung unter 1,5 Grad zu bringen, weil wir dieses Ziel mit den jetzigen Verpflichtungen nicht erreichen. Und deshalb will ich auch mich in meinem ersten Teil darauf konzentrieren, was bedeutet das? Denn es bedeutet ja, dass die Welt gemeinsam handeln muss. Es ist ein internationales Abkommen. Leider sind nicht alle mehr dabei, aber viele. Aber es bedeutet vor allen Dingen auch, dass jedes Land seinen Beitrag dazu leisten muss. Und wenn wir auf Deutschland blicken, das Land, das ich hier vertrete, dann sind wir 30 Jahre nach der deutschen Einheit, können wir sagen, es ist eine Situation, in der es uns vergleichsweise gut geht. Wir hatten noch nie so wenig Arbeitslose. Wir geben viel Geld für Forschung und Entwicklung aus. Wir haben unsere Investitionen gesteigert. Aber das alles spiegelt ja nicht das wider, was uns in den nächsten 30 Jahren gelingen muss. Denn der Auftrag, unter 1,5 Grad Erderwärmung gegenüber der Zeit vor der Industrialisierung zu bleiben, dieser Auftrag bedeutet ja nicht mehr und nicht weniger für uns in Europa zum Beispiel, dass wir bis 2050 klimaneutral sein müssen. Und Klimaneutralität, das sagt sich so gut, und die allermeisten Länder der Europäischen Union haben sich jetzt auch dazu verpflichtet. Die Kommissionspräsidentin war gestern hier, hat Ihnen den Green Deal vorgestellt. Und Europa will der erste Kontinent sein, der CO2-frei, also emissionsfrei lebt. Aber, meine Damen und Herren, das sind natürlich Transformationen von gigantischem historischem Ausmaß. Diese Transformation heißt im Grunde, die gesamte Art des Wirtschaftens und des Lebens, wie wir es uns im Industriezeitalter angewöhnt haben, in den nächsten 30 Jahren. Und wie versöhne ich diejenigen, die an den Klimawandel einfach nicht glauben wollen, die so tun, als wäre es eine Glaubensfrage? Für mich ist es eine klassische Frage der völlig klaren Evidenz durch wissenschaftliche Daten. Aber da wir in einer Zeit leben, wo die Fakten mit den Emotionen konkurrieren, kann man immer versuchen, auch durch Emotionen eine Antifaktizität zu schaffen und die dann genauso wichtig ist. Das heißt also, wir müssen die Emotionen mit den Fakten versöhnen. Und das ist vielleicht die größte gesellschaftliche Aufgabe. Und da ist meine Theorie oder mein Angang, dass ich sage, das setzt zumindest mal voraus, dass man miteinander spricht. Und die Unversöhnlichkeit und die Sprachlosigkeit, die zum Teil herrscht zwischen denen, die den Klimawandel leugnen und denen, die ihn sehen und dafür kämpfen, dass wir ihn bewältigen. Die macht mir Sorge und die muss überwunden werden. Da sprechen hier viele Menschen miteinander, die selten miteinander sprechen, aber es sprechen nicht ausreichend viele Menschen miteinander. Und wenn wir in eine Welt hineingehen, in der die Sprachlosigkeit vielleicht manchmal noch größer ist als im Kalten Krieg, wo man ziemlich geordnete Austauschmechanismen hatten, dann haben wir ein Problem. Und deshalb plädiere ich dafür, dass, wenn es auch noch so schwer fällt, man sich austauscht, auch zwischen den kontroversesten Gruppen, weil man ansonsten in seinen Vorurteilen lebt, in seinen Blasen lebt. Das macht sich im digitalen Zeitalter ja noch viel besser als in früheren Zeitaltern. Und das könnte zum Verhängnis werden und das muss überwunden werden.
Najmanja, dakle, komunikacija od hladnog rata, u nekim stvarima čak i manja. Angela Merkel danas je pozvala da se što je više moguće države i naravno njihovi lideri posvete diplomaciji. A nakon toga na neki način su pozornicu preuzeli njeni kolege iz Europe i njeni kolege iz Europske komisije. Danas se ovdje govorilo i o Europskom Green Dealu, onome o čemu je jučer ovdje govorila Ursula von der Leyen, prva predsjednica Europske komisije. Franz Timmermans i njegovi kolege, između ostalog bio je tu i nizozemski premijer Rutte, i oni su svi dakle danas jedan nezanemariv dio svog boravka ovdje posvetili kako bi javnosti, svjetskoj javnosti predstavili Europski Green Deal. Što on znači za Europu? Treba li ga gledati u negativnom ili u pozitivnom svjetlu? Je li Europa zaista morala biti prva i na koji način može Europa podnijeti takvo, na neki način, neki će reći, opterećenje za svoje financije i za svoje gospodarstvo kada si postavlja ovako visoke kriterije, pogotovo uzme li se u obzir razvijenost, odnosno nerazvijenost nekih istočnih i srednjeistočnih, odnosno država središnje Europe koje su relativno nedavno postale državama članicama Europske unije.
But this is the one issue that sort of captures the imagination of Europeans across the continent. It's also one of the few issues where nobody doubts that we have to act on a continental scale if we really want to make a difference. So what we did is then we went back to the drawing board and said, if we want to be climate neutral by 2050, what does that mean for 2040? What does that mean for 2030? What does that mean for the next 5 years? And we started mapping it out. And then we chose a holistic approach. So not just one sector, it's not just about energy, it's not just about oil, it's about the whole economy. Why? Because we're also in the middle of an industrial revolution that sort of coincides with the climate crisis.
Absolutely.
And we are challenged because of our demographics in Europe. When my parents were born, Europe was about 23-24% of the world's population, Africa 5%. In a couple of years' time, it's going to be exactly the opposite. And in a generation's time, Africa will account for almost half of the world's population. So these are sort of tectonic shifts. And the one thing is clear. Every industrial revolution or every fundamental change in our society has the potential of being extremely disruptive and extremely unfair. Very few people win and a lot of people lose. So if you take your role as government seriously, you have to organize it together with all the stakeholders this time, not on your own, because that won't work.
That's right.
And organize it in a way that it leads to a redistribution that leaves no one behind. And I think that's the core element of the Green Deal. And I'm really it's very clear. Without Generation Z, without millennials, we would not be here. Yeah. They are going into the streets. They are shaping the politics of the future. Yeah. They're taking this into their hands, and that's a good thing.
What is the cause that we can actually unite a new generation of young Europeans to work towards? It has to be climate in conjunction with technological disruption. These are the two big challenges that we have to face. So this is a very ambitious plan. We've supported it from day one. It's particularly important for Greece. Why? Because all climate models tell us that the Eastern Mediterranean is going to be particularly vulnerable to climate change. Now, this is nothing new. I remember, we look at the horrible fires in Australia, but we had mega fires in Greece. The first mega fire that I remember in Greece, I was chairman of the Environment Committee in 2007. And at the time, we commissioned a study about the implications of climate change in Greece, and we really almost lost a decade. So we cannot afford to lose another decade.
It's difficult. There is this tradition in my country that we talk endlessly about everything. Then we decide, and then in the implementation phase we can speed up. However, given that tradition, it's very difficult for a government to say, this is how we're going to do it. By the way, in most countries it doesn't work. Yes, I like what you were saying about setting the bar. There it will work. But look at some countries with a very centralistic system. At the end of this parliament or the street or population in general who will then correct it. So at the end it will only slow down the implementation. At the end, as I said earlier, we took more time than we thought we had to take. And particularly in that phase, we found that we didn't have the narrative there. And it is crucial that when you take so many people on board, that you also have that debate almost on television, in the newspapers, that it is not just presented. And because we were not ready, and when things started to leak out and were incomplete, it was easier for others to say, okay, this is nothing, it will mean that you have completely to change your lives, jobs will be destroyed, etc. Well, that's exactly what we didn't want. Of course, the aim of all of these policies is to make sure that we are on the forefront of fighting this problem, but at the same time creating that economic growth opportunity. But then, again, we were successful by June. Now it is about implementation. In the implementation phase, again, we have to work broad-based. That's why I'm spending most of my time here with big industries to try to tell them that we want to be their partners in making that change happen, and that we need them to do that. So we have to address the problem here and make sure that in terms of the newest technologies, it is Europe where these technologies are created and implemented. And I'm absolutely convinced we can do that.
I'm a father of 3 teenagers, and so I have a lot of questions at home. And they are well educated in the problems, but not in the solutions. And the gap there is dangerous because it leads to lack of hope and ultimately cynicism and all sorts of things. So I think we will just try to continue to listen to each other. And when we try that, we find that through dialogue we are much closer to each other than what we think, and that most people actually want to be part of the solution and not the opposite. So it's, I think one of the elements maybe of the European Green Deal is also to allow that to happen, allow different stakeholders to talk to each other without maybe necessarily being overly stressed about the exact solution. We will find it if we can only provide those platforms. That's what we think.
If we create synergies, both horizontal and vertical, within industries and between industries, the capital can be mobilized. Because we're talking about, in Europe, about 300 billion investment a year. And if I then hear what we're still investing per year in fossil fuel, it's more than that. So we need to have the shift, and it will not be a problem, I believe, to find the capital if we bring things together and if we as governments provide some long-term predictability and stability.
A ovdje je danas bio, kao i manje više gotovo svake godine od kako je na čelu te organizacije, Antonio Guterres, glavni tajnik Ujedinjenih naroda. I on, naravno, nije mogao izbjeći pitanja vezana ne samo za klimatske promjene i njihove posljedice, nego na naprosto kompletnu globalnu geopolitičku situaciju, pitanja gladi, pitanja izbjeglica, pitanja granica.
Now, if I had to use 2 words to describe the state of the world, it would be uncertainty and instability. In my address to the General Assembly yesterday, I mentioned the four horsemen that are around us and represent huge challenges for our common future. And the first is climate change. Climate change is indeed, for me, the defining issue of our time. For the first time in the history of humankind, there is a limit, a physical limit, to our perspectives of development. And this has led humankind to declare a war to nature, and nature is striking back in a very violent way, as we have seen in different parts of the world.
A jedno od pitanja koje se može čuti u Davosu i ne samo u Davosu ovih dana je naravno pitanje ravnopravnosti spolova. Tako je jednog dana, odnosno ne tako davno, odjeknula po cijeloj zemaljskoj kugli informacija da Finsku u ovom trenutku vodi 5 političarki, odnosno koalicija 5 stranaka kojima su svima na čelu političarke, a najmlađa među njima, odnosno niti jedna, gotovo da nije starija od 35 godina. Sanna Marin je naravno premijerka Finske, međutim čak se i ona ovdje u Davosu mogla sresti vrlo vjerojatno na potpuno neočekivanim mjestima sa pitanjima koja također nije očekivala, a koja naprosto u sebi nose barem jedan srž, barem jedan dio nekih rodnih stereotipa.
You have the 5 leaders of the coalition, all women. How do you meet? Where do you meet? When? How does it work?
Well, it works like in every government. We have meetings and we make decisions, and we don't. Yeah, we don't meet in a female locker room and have a locker room talk.
Well, it's funny you say that because I saw in another interview you gave, you said you sometimes meet in the sauna. So, but of course, I suppose that's not so different in Finland.
Yeah.
Everyone's meeting in saunas all the time.
That's true, yeah. We don't have the meetings in sauna. That was a joke that I made in Time magazine, but actually we've been to the sauna together with the 5 female leaders and talked about everything else, our family life, and get to know better each other, because I think when you know people you're working with, you also can cooperate with them better. So I think it's very important that we also have a social life and we also communicate in a not that formal way. It helps also in the formal meetings to get things done.
What I'm trying to get at is there are many women who will say that a conversation that has more women is less, for example, conflictual, that women tend to be more willing to find a compromise or a solution that is more cooperative. Do you believe that's true, or do you think that is in its own way a kind of gender stereotyping, and that actually, you know, men and women are essentially, you know, that these dynamics are the same no matter whether there are 8 women and 2 men or 8 men and 2 women?
Well, I think if we have people from different backgrounds, different genders making the decisions are better because different angles are being pointed out and being used. So I think it's very important that you have different angles and different backgrounds in the discussion and also in the decision-making process. I think it's better for everybody. It's not only better for women that we have women in charge. It's also better for the men. And we have many issues that we have to work also in Finland, even though we are a country that's been pioneering in gender equality, but we also have many things to do. And one thing is reforming the parental leave, because we do have too few fathers that are spending more time with their children when the children are very young. And we want equality also in the parental leave system. And actually, me and my husband, we did split our parental leave in half. So I spent 6 months with our small daughter, and my husband spent 6 months with our daughter as well. And I think it's very good also for the men that they can build such a trusting and good how do you say, relationship with their children. So I think it's very important, and I feel that we also have a lot of things to do in Finland when it comes to gender equality on equal pay, when it comes to parental leave, and for example, gender-based violence. That is an issue that we need to work on in Finland. And it's very good that we have different people from different backgrounds. And actually our gender equality minister is a man in our government. So I think it's very good that we have different perspectives. We need everybody on board. It's benefiting everybody, so we need everybody on board.
A Davos nije mjesto koje okuplja samo donositelje odluka na političkoj razini, političke lidere ili šefove velikih globalnih korporacija. Davos je mjesto koje okuplja umjetnike, znanstvenike pa i filozofe. Yuval Noah Harari bi sebe vrlo vjerojatno opisao u ovoj posljednjoj kategoriji. U svakom slučaju je prilično uspješan akademski znanstvenik koji predaje na sveučilištu u Jeruzalemu i objavljuje vrlo uspješne i utjecajne knjige. Vrlo vjerojatno ste na neku od njih već i naletili u proteklih nekoliko godina. Bilo da je riječ o njegovoj prvoj knjizi Sapiens, kratka povijest čovječanstva, ili o drugoj knjizi Homo Deus, kratka povijest sutrašnjice, ili možda o njegovoj najnovijoj knjizi 21 lekcija za 21. stoljeće. Upravo je 21. stoljeće i bilo tema današnjeg panela na kojem je Harari igrao centralnu ulogu, a pitanje koje je nosilo naslov tog panela je bilo kako preživjeti 21. stoljeće, odnosno koje to sve opasnosti vrebaju za čovječanstvo i kako se s njima suočiti. Harari naravno izaziva puno kontroverziji, neki će mu reći da sve mu nastupa iz vrlo moralizatorskog kuta, no jedna je stvar prilično jasna. Izaziva itekako oprečne reakcije, izaziva naravno, odnosno provocira da se misli o tome o čemu on govori, a u svakom slučaju je itekako zanimljiv.
As we enter the third decade of the 21st century, humanity faces so many issues and questions that it's really hard to know what to focus on. Three problems pose existential challenges to our species. These three existential challenges are nuclear war, ecological collapse, and technological disruption. We should focus on them. Now, nuclear war and ecological collapse are already familiar threats, so let me spend some time explaining the less familiar threat posed by technological disruption. In Davos, we hear so much about the enormous promises of technology, and these promises are certainly real, but technology might also disrupt human society and the very meaning of human life in numerous ways, ranging from the creation of a global useless class to the rise of data colonialism and of digital dictatorships. First, we might face upheavals on the social and economic level. Automation will soon eliminate millions upon millions of jobs, and while new jobs will certainly be created, it is unclear whether people will be able to learn the necessary new skills fast enough. Suppose you're a 50-year-old truck driver, and you just lost your job to a self-driving vehicle. Now, there are new jobs in designing software or in teaching yoga to engineers. But how does a 50-year-old truck driver reinvent himself or herself as a software engineer or as a yoga teacher? And people will have to do it not just once, but again and again throughout their lives, because the automation revolution will not be a single watershed event following which the job market will settle down into some new equilibrium. Rather, it will be a cascade of ever bigger disruptions, because AI is nowhere near its full potential. All jobs will disappear, new jobs will emerge, but then the new jobs will rapidly change and vanish. Whereas in the past, humans had to struggle against exploitation, in the 21st century, the really big struggle will be against irrelevance. And it's much worse to be irrelevant than to be exploited. Those who fail in the struggle against irrelevance would constitute a new useless class. People who are useless, not from the viewpoint of their friends and family, of course, but useless from the viewpoint of the economic and political system. And this useless class will be separated by an ever-growing gap from the ever more powerful elite. The AI revolution might create unprecedented inequality, not just between classes, but also between countries. In the 19th century, a few countries, like Britain and Japan, industrialized first, and they went on to conquer and exploit most of the world. If we aren't careful, the same thing will happen in the 21st century with AI. We are already in the midst of an AI arms race, with China and the USA leading the race, and most countries being left far, far behind. Unless we take action to distribute the benefits and power of AI between all humans, AI will likely create immense wealth in a few high-tech hubs, while other countries will either go bankrupt or will become exploited data colonies. Now, we aren't talking about a science fiction scenario of robots rebelling against humans. We are talking about far more primitive AI, which is nevertheless enough to disrupt the global balance. Just think, what will happen to developing economies once it is cheaper to produce textiles or cars in California than in Mexico? And what will happen to politics in your country in 20 years when somebody in San Francisco or in Beijing knows the entire medical and personal history of every politician, every judge, and every journalist in your country, including all their sexual escapades, all their mental weaknesses, and all their corrupt dealings? Will it still be an independent country, or will it become a data colony? When you have enough data, you don't need to send soldiers in order to control a country. Alongside inequality, the other major danger we face is the rise of digital dictatorships that will monitor everyone all the time. Just imagine North Korea in 20 years, when everybody has to wear a biometric bracelet which constantly monitors your blood pressure, your heart rate, your brain activity, 24 hours a day. You listen to a speech on the radio by the great leader, and they know what you actually feel. You can clap your hands and smile, but if you're angry, they know you'll be in the gulag tomorrow morning. And if we allow the emergence of such total surveillance regimes, don't think that the rich and powerful in places like Davos will be safe. Just ask Jeff Bezos. In Stalin's USSR, the state monitored members of the communist elite more than anyone else. The same will be true of future total surveillance regimes. The higher you are in the hierarchy, the more closely you will be watched. Do you want your CEO or your president to know what you really think about them? So it's in the interest of all humans, including the elites, to prevent the rise of such digital dictatorships. And in the meantime, if you get a suspicious WhatsApp message from some prince, don't open it. Now, even if we indeed prevent the establishment of digital dictatorships, the ability to hack humans might still undermine the very meaning of human freedom. Because as humans will rely on AI to make more and more decisions for us, authority will shift from humans to algorithms. And this is already happening. Already today, billions of people trust the Facebook algorithm to tell us what is new. The Google algorithm tells us what is true. Netflix tells us what to watch, and the Amazon and Alibaba algorithms tell us what to buy. In the not-so-distant future, similar algorithms might tell us where to work and whom to marry, and also decide whether to hire us for a job, whether to give us a loan, and whether the central bank should raise the interest rate. And if you ask why you were not given a loan, or why the bank didn't raise the interest rate, the answer will always be the same. Because the computer says no. And since the limited human brain lacks sufficient biological knowledge, computing power, and data, humans will simply not be able to understand the computer's decisions. So even in supposedly free countries, humans are likely to lose control over our own lives and also lose the ability to understand public policy.
A ovdje nećemo stati sa znanosti, odnosno sa minutama koje ćemo posvetiti znanosti u ovim našim emisijama iz Davosa. Kao što smo rekli, ovdje se zaista okupljaju u najmanju ruku vrlo zanimljivi i svakako izrazito uspješni znanstvenici čiji bi izumi zaista mogli obilježiti sutrašnjicu. Jedna od njih je i profesorica Emma Teeling sa sveučilišta u Dublinu, koja se, a to je možda i malo prigodno s obzirom na termin u kojem održavamo ove naše emisije, koja se bavi šišmišima. Međutim, nju ne zanima kako šišmiši lete ili možda nešto tako. Nju zanima zašto šišmiši tako jako dugo žive. I ne samo da jako dugo žive, s obzirom na to kolika im je njihova tjelesna masa, nego i zapravo jako slabo stare, odnosno vrlo uspješno ne stare i liječe same sebe. Kako to može jednog dana možda dovesti do produljenja čovjekova životnog vijeka, što točno istražuje i kako, poslušajte. Professor Teeling,
yes.
Could you please tell us a little bit more about your work, your scientific work?
So, for the past 20 years, I've studied bats. I've studied their behavior, their ecology, their evolution, and I'm now sequencing their genomes. And the reason why I study bats is because they are the most extraordinary of all mammals. They're the only mammals that fly. They can see at night using their ears. They can fly using sound alone in complete darkness. They are 1 in 5 of all living mammals are bats. But the extraordinary thing, and what I'm talking about here in Davos, is that bats seem to have evolved the ability to extend their health span. Bats don't age. Bats get nearly no cancer at all. They have evolved mechanisms to slow down the aging process.
Are there any other similar species, speaking about mammals?
Yes, there are. There's one other mammal that can do this and do it exquisitely, and that's a naked mole rat. But that's one rodent where there's 1,300 species of bats, and most of them are living way longer than expected given their body size. So there's 19 species of mammal that live longer than humans given their body size. 18 are bats, and this is just from kind of limited field studies. One's this cool naked mole rat. So bats and naked mole rats are the aging extremists. Bats are the ones that live the very longest.
How much?
So they're living 10 times longer than expected given their body size. Now, in nature there's a law. Small things live fast, die young. Think of a mouse, think of a shrew. A mouse is never going to live longer than 4 years. Big things live long and live slow. Think of a whale, living over 200 years. But bats are the smallest of all mammals, yet they can live up to 43 years at least. So there was
one single bat can live up to 43 years.
So this bat holds a longevity record. So this bat, this is Myotis branti, was caught as an adult. A ring was put on his forearm. It was caught 43 years later now. Without any signs of aging. Now, what's exquisite and strange about this is not the 43, because we can live longer than that. It's the fact that that bat weighs 1/3 that of a lab mouse. So they're doing something extraordinary. And it's not just one species, it's many, many species. So they've evolved mechanisms to slow down the aging process.
So if we could translate bat years into human years,
yes.
How long would these 43 years be?
About so you correct for body size, and roughly it's about 250 human years, and there was no signs of aging. Now that's extraordinary. So they're doing something unusual, and my research in the past 10 years, so it's funded by the European Research Council and now by the Irish Research Council, is to study wild bats to understand what they do at the cellular and molecular level to slow down aging.
Have you come to any conclusion?
Yes. It's very exciting, and this is why I'm here in Davos talking about it. So I've been working, grouping with this conservation organisation, Britannique Vivante, who have been studying this population of long-lived bats in France. They've been watching their behaviour for 20 years. They have caught them as babies. We catch them, we put a little marker on them, a little microchip like you put on a dog or a cat, and you release them. We're able to know their age because we catch them as babies when their finger bones aren't yet fused. Once the finger bones fuse, it can be about 6 months to a year, you can't age a bat ever again. So we catch them when they're babies, then we recatch them again year after year after year. We've been taking a little bit of wing, a little bit of blood, small enough samples so that we don't kill them. We mine them, we feed them, it's all done under ethical permission with vets as well. And what we found by trying to look at the biomarkers of aging is what bats do to slow down the aging process is they increase their ability to repair their DNA as they age. We decrease it. They increase their ability to remove damage. That falls off on us too as we age. So they're able to maintain and slow down the bad effects of damage. They remove the damage of living.
They're basically self-repairing themselves.
Yes. And they also are able to have a balanced immune response. So as we age, you get inflamed. And this is, think of rheumatoid arthritis, and the inflammation drives the aging process, and things start to break down, and everything gets into this kind of overrun, which speeds up aging as we get older. But what the bats seem to be able to do is they're able to dampen this inflammation that happens from metabolism, for example. And they seem to have this anti-inflammatory response, again, which is very, very different to a mouse. Mice, inflammation decreases. Bats are able to maintain homeostasis. And they are able to maintain the protective ends, these things called telomeres. They're like aglets, those things in the end of shoelaces, like bumpers on a car. So they protect their chromosomes as they replicate. Their telomeres don't shorten with age. Most other species they do. With ours, we do. They've argued that this telomere shortening, every time your cell replicates, it can't extend the one end of one chromosome. And these telomeres protect the message in the DNA. But as your cells replicate and replicate, they get shorter, shorter, shorter. They eventually get so short that's now an old cell. When everything's working fine, it goes into a self-destruct mode, removes itself. But when things aren't working fine, that override suicide switch, it gets overridden. And it sits there as an old cell, not doing anything, not replicating, but emitting SASP, which is this call to the other healthy cells to come to it, and they become zombie cells. And this, so old cells...
Is this cancer you're talking about?
No, this is just aging with these old senescent cells making other cells age. This is not even cancer yet. This inflames the immune system, drives the aging process. So this doesn't seem to happen in bats. And so they're able to prevent that because their telomeres don't shorten with age as would be expected. So again, I had to try and see, well, what are they doing? So all of these signatures, better able to repair their DNA, better able to remove their damage, protecting their telomeres, having this nicely balanced immune response. How are they doing this? So we also looked at the mechanisms. We looked at these little genes called microRNAs, and what they do is they maintain the regulation of these genes. So the bats and us, we share the same suite of genes. There's a bit slight spelling differences in the A, T, C, and G, but ultimately they're doing the same thing. What's the major difference in a lot of these aging pathways is when the bats switch on the gene or switch off the gene. And what this means is that we've now sequenced the genes that regulate the switching on and switching off.
So you've been able to do that?
We've been able to sequence them and identify them. And now we need to validate that, will that gene, that regulatory switch, work in us? Or do we have a similar regulatory switch that suddenly gets switched off? So we've identified, it's taken us 10 years to actually identify what are they doing. It was a big long-term aging study, and we need to keep going to really validate that as the bats are moving to different times in their lifespan, are things going to change? Maybe they're doing something else extraordinary.
Which brings us to, well, the most important question is, do you think you'll be able to apply your knowledge, to apply what you've discovered in humans? Will we be able to live longer in 10, 20, 50 years' time?
Well, it's not living longer because we're already living way longer than should be given our body size. So there's going to be a 340% increase in people over the age of 80 in the next 30 years. But the problem is that our probability of acquiring disease of the old age has stayed the same. It's at 60. So what I'm trying to do is not necessarily extend lifespan, it's to extend the health span. And if we could slow down this aging process like the bats are doing, that we could extend the quality and the health of our life. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm not thinking of extending lifespan infinitely, but to make sure that our lifespan and our health span are matched. Now the question is, can my results translate? I certainly hope so. And so what we need to try and do now is the harder part. So we've looked to nature, we've used an evolutionary and genomic perspective, studying fantastic wild organisms, these wonderful bats. We now need to go in and validate that our hypothesis that these genes that we think are driving this anti-aging signature really are doing what they're doing. So we have to do lab experiments to make sure they are. Then once we've really identified them, chances are that we can then translate that. So I'm going to give you an example of this naked mole rat to show what can actually happen. So there's cool work being done on naked mole rats. They realize that in rodents, they don't get cancer. And they are probably 10 years ahead of the aging study than we are. And what they're doing at the moment, they've worked out that the naked mole rats, they produce this hyaluronic acid, essentially. And it's in their skin. Potentially it's an anti-cancer mechanism. It's what a lot of the beauty products are now using. It rejuvenates your skin. It's what they use to protect themselves when they're doing their burrowing.
I mean, the beauty industry and...
Allegedly. I don't know yet. Maybe I should try it as I'm getting older. Allegedly. But it should, though. Potentially it can work. But it's not necessarily just about beauty. Imagine if we could control cancer, we could slow it down. Imagine we could slow down the cost of aging. So it's worked out in the United States of America that if we could slow down the aging process by 2 years, extend people's health span by 2 years, there'll be a $7 trillion savings over 50 years. Because as you age, I mean, it's good business for big pharma aging. You buy pills to help you not be so sore. You have to take drugs to help you. But imagine if you could slow that down. Think what you could do with $7 trillion. Think how many trees we could actually plant with $7 trillion.
Think how much science you could fund.
That's exactly where we're going. But
is it difficult to get projects like yours funded?
Unfortunately, it's really, really difficult. And so I was very lucky that I got a European Research Council grant to start this off. And the European Research Council funds this Horizon Frontier Science that doesn't need to have a direct commercial benefit. It just has to be excellent curiosity-driven science, and it's reviewed by a panel of experts. That's the sole criteria. And they took a chance on me, and we got funded. And the first year I remember setting up the project on the ground in France, crying at 3 in the morning thinking, oh my God, this is insane. How are we supposed? There's a reason why people never study bats in an aging context. It's too hard. But you know, they say in French, impossible n'est pas français, which means nothing is impossible. And when there's a will, there's a way. So we made it work with this brilliant team of scientists that I was working with, my PhD students and my postdocs. But because the ERC believed in this project, allowed me to explore it, and potentially for it all to go wrong, we're now one step forward. I've now been funded by the Irish Research Council, again a funding agency that doesn't have any priorities, doesn't have to fund only economically viable science. This allows us to explore and uncover things that you couldn't do any other way. So we need to have a balanced funding landscape where you can really fund this curiosity-driven science, because God knows what's going to show up.
It's fundamental science, basically. It doesn't necessarily have to be applied science.
Exactly, and this will advance all of humanity. This will advance our understanding. Think of the things that you find just by the curiosity of scientists. We've uncovered some of the coolest things in the whole world. Penicillin, for example, that saved so many lives, wasn't a directed, priority-driven type of science. It allowed us to work. So curiosity is something that you need to fund. You need to fund excellence. We need to work really, really hard to make it work. And when you get this type of funding, you've got to do your damnedest to make sure that you deliver and that you can really pull out the juice in the science.
My final question, did Davos help you?
Davos
will Davos help you?
I'm hoping Davos will. I think so, because it's wonderful to be here to actually show what this basic frontier research can do and how it could potentially be economically viable. After my talk, I had individuals come up, and one individual said to me, hi, I actually make the drugs. I make microRNA drugs. Come and talk to me. I had somebody from the beauty industry say, hey, I'm very interested in an idea. Why don't you come and talk to me? So Davos is a place of ideas, bringing people together that wouldn't normally be brought together. If we want to really make it translatable, if we want to go and try and allow us, what we find with bats, allow them to slow down aging, if we want to make that accessible to everybody, you have to work with the industrialists and the manufacturers, the people who know how to do this. Scientists have to talk with everybody. We have to communicate and sell our message. So yes, Davos has been spectacular and I'm very lucky.
Well, so has been your speech and your project. Thank you so much for being with us, Professor Thieling.
Thank you for asking me to talk to you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bila je ovo dakle Emma Thieling, profesorica sa sveučilišta u Dublinu. Nadajmo se da će njena istraživanja jednog dana dati neke konkretne rezultate, ne samo što se tiče produljenja životnog vijeka, nego kako je i sama naglasila, produljenja vijeka zdravlja cijelom čovječanstvu. A sutra slijedi posljednji dan Svjetskog ekonomskog foruma u Davosu. Sutra će biti naravno i svečana ceremonija zatvaranja, sutra će biti još velikih ceremonijalnih obraćanja, ali sutra se ne očekuje više niti jedno veliko svjetsko političko teškaško, da to tako kažemo, ime. Međutim, sutra će biti prilika podsjetiti se na sve brojne panele, razgovore, intervjue koji su se događali na Davosu, a koje se naprosto ne stignu pratiti. Sutra će nam također biti prilika i podsjetiti se povijesno kakvu ulogu je Davos imao kada je riječ o diplomatskoj povijesti, ne samo procesa raspada Jugoslavije, nego i procesa stvaranja samostalnih država koje su nastale iz Jugoslavije. U svakom slučaju, budite s nama i sutra, a do tada ostanite uz N1 televiziju. Laka vam noć.